So as a quick disclaimer at the beginning here, this is less of a review of Anthem and whether or not you should buy it, more a focused design critique on some of the gameplay elements and other designs in the game. I'll be ignoring some major technical issues or even some gameplay issues that are more obvious and egregious that have been covered elsewhere. Since most of what I'll be focusing on is critiquing some of the problems, I wanted to start with one of the things that the game does really well, which is the movement mechanics. We'll also be able to use this feature as a watermark when comparing it to the other features in the game. Movement in Anthem feels great, and I hate to use that word because it's so generic, but it's pretty appropriate for this mechanic. The propulsion sounds are super loud and they crackle. You can tell that your javelin has real weight to it, and somehow you can tell that there's air resistance fighting against your javelin. Navigating and dodging around just give you that sense of being a fucking fighter jet. And it isn't just the video or audio, there's actually depth to the mechanic itself and how it changes from javelin to javelin. It's fun to figure out what's faster, flying or dodging. And if jumping resets my dodge count, can I jump twice to get the most dodges? Or what if I cancel my jump into a dodge and then cancel that dodge into a melee attack and then cancel that melee attack? Figuring this out shows you another good aspect of movement, which is that it's all physics based. Dodging, jumping, melee, they aren't canned animation that move you in a fixed direction. It physically propels your javelin forward, and that momentum can be leveraged and manipulated to use the flexibility of this system to move you in ways faster than just flying. There is a lot of required travel in looter shooters or MMOs in general, and whereas in most games this is a tedious task, Anthem makes you look forward to that travel. Luckily, some of the charm from the movement system carries over into abilities. The Colossus abilities have a ton of weight to them, the Ranger's Spark Beam is straight out of Infinity War, and the Interceptor is the epitome of a space ninja. And like movement, some of them have great mechanics to back it up. You can slam into the ground from the sky and go into a melee attack, and cancel the backswing from that attack into a dodge, and throw a grenade. And this applies to most abilities. A few fall short, like the Interceptor's ultimate ability, which more looks cool than works as a fun mechanic. But most of the abilities that fall through the cracks here suffer from a problem that exists throughout the game, and my first real gripe with the game, which is its unresponsiveness. The Colossus shield, for example, just takes a little too long to come up, and this applies to things like dodging too, where you can hit the dodge button as a projectile is coming towards you, and even though you hit it right before you need it to, it still doesn't come out. You can be flying around as the Interceptor in breakneck speeds and go to hit an ability, and it just brings everything to a halt. Even simple things like switching weapons takes way too long. Sluggishness is one thing, but pressing a button and getting absolutely no feedback is unacceptable. If you try to fire while holding an unscoped sniper rifle, nothing happens. If you try to fire when your weapon is empty, absolutely nothing happens. There's no click, there's no automatic weapon switch. You're stuck in a situation where you don't even know if you actually press the button. It's a failure to communicate information to the player, and it's particularly bad with weapons. Check out this screenshot. So I have a grenade launcher and an assault rifle equipped. How can I tell which one I'm holding? Does the weapon icon help? Does the reticle tell me anything? What about the model of the gun itself? I can see that I'm reloading, but what's my exact current progress in the reload? This communication problem touches many aspects of the game. There's no distinct sound when my shield breaks or when my abilities come off cooldown or if there's a projectile about to hit me from behind. If you couple these problems with the graphical clusterfuck the game can be sometimes, it leads to one of the most common situations found in Anthem. What the fuck just killed me? These missing cues are a particularly big deal in Anthem because of the way the open world combat works. Other looter shooters like Destiny or The Division have a very linear path and enemies rarely spawn outside of your view. But the flight system in Anthem ensures that not only will you be attacked from behind, but also above or below. And despite there being a system of portals where enemies come from, there are a lot of instances where enemies just kind of appear out of thin air, with no audio or visual cue at all. Anthem doesn't just fail to have some of these basic features, but it also fails to implement anything new. I honestly can't think of anything where Anthem really innovates. And this comes out in a lot of different areas in the game. Weapons are just kind of the bare minimum, really bland. And they fail to reach that watermark that movement and abilities have when it comes to the feel. Games have been innovating weapons for dozens of years. I mean, look at something like the shock rifle from Unreal Tournament. That game came out in 1999, and its weapons are far more unique than anything Anthem has done. Even Destiny has some unique weapons. I mean, the game takes place in the future. They could have done crazy stuff, but it feels more like something out of Modern Warfare. And even Modern Warfare did things better with having weapons that have real recoil and feel different gun to gun. This lack of innovation applies to enemies too. Sure, there's a lot of different types of enemies, but there's really no difference in AI. Even if they have different abilities, those abilities are done in a repetitive and predictable way. They don't try to flank me when I'm behind cover, or do anything in reaction to what I'm doing. There's no room for me to counterplay or outsmart the enemy AI because they don't have any. Dumb enemies allow me to play dumb, and that's not fun. Even the story aspects of Anthem have no innovation. Now, I'm not a story guy, I've never been a fan of stories in games, but I truly gave the story in Anthem a shot. But it really felt as bland and as boring as any other story. And most of it is done while standing in Fort Tarsis as people kind of overact around you. It feels like a play is happening in front of you instead of people actually talking to you. The worst offender of a lack of innovation is probably the mission system, which is so horribly bad that I think it deserves its own video, so I won't even get into that. Now, while there might not be a ton of innovation in the area of customization and gear, there are a few aspects that I like. Every bit of your character's customization is tied to a particular piece of armor or gear. Gone are the days of skill trees and passive perks tied to your character. And this difference is what allows you to easily swap javelins between missions or whenever you want. It also slices up customization into smaller, modular, more digestive chunks. This allows you to make changes to your build or come up with new builds more quickly and more intuitively. This works in contrast to the more old school way found in, say, Division or World of Warcraft, where you have to spend a lot of time and effort building a character, and if you want to change your character, it requires starting from scratch. It also makes it easier to focus on what kind of gameplay you're aiming for in your character, as opposed to the more nitty-gritty details like I need 100 health or 20 more intelligence to wear this piece of armor. And Anthem has just enough gear slots to make things manageable, but allow you to come up with some pretty cool combinations, especially when you move up to the master tier and legendary gear pieces that have some pretty interesting effects. Unfortunately, everything I just mentioned about the customization system is pretty much completely undermined by the progression system. Why is that? Well, each piece of gear has a level associated with it, and rarity affects that level. So in a game where leveling up is the goal, you obviously need to wear the highest level gear. So while you're leveling up, you don't really get to choose what you want to wear. You end up just wearing the highest level gear you have, and obviously that changes throughout your leveling process. But in Anthem, this doesn't change when you hit level 30. You're still getting higher level gear based on rarity. So if I happen to get a legendary level 47 assault launcher, the only option is to use that or use my normal level 36 equivalents. Obviously, I'm going to choose to wear the highest level gear I have, which essentially removes any agency I have in making a choice towards what gear I wear. I have to wear the highest level gear I have. It doesn't matter if that's not how I want to play the character. This is so frustrating because I have over 50 hours in this game and I've never been able to truly customize the character according to the playstyle that I want. I'm always at the mercy of the highest level gear that I happen to find. And while this isn't a problem specific to Anthem, a lot of other gear-based games have the same problem. Anthem is uniquely bad because there's no path to acquisition. Even if I knew the exact piece of gear that I wanted, there's no way to work towards getting that piece of gear. This leads to a aimless and completely random grind. As a player, I can't guarantee that I'm making stable progress towards the piece of gear that I want. This is made worse when you combine RNG with the increased difficulty. There have been plenty of times where I could spend an hour doing a Grandmaster 2 difficulty mission and get nothing, and then spend half an hour doing a Grandmaster 1 difficulty and get 1 or 2 Masterworks or even a Legendary. Now, I'm not saying RNG is all bad, but players need a more stable and reliable way to get gear that they want, even if it's a long road. Ultimately, Anthem's design is bare minimum in most cases and doesn't innovate at all, and while most of this could be improved as the game goes on, I don't think there's reason enough to stick around until Anthem 2.